everyone, and welcome back to my special education news channel. My name is Rachel Coast, and thank you for joining me in today's topic. The topic comes from the book called Contemporary Issues in Special Education. The authors of this book are Ashley L. Renee Hershey and Tony Mild. We will be focusing on Chapter 14 this week. This chapter asks the question, should schools be responsible for conducting annual student mental health screenings? Why is this an issue? Well, one reason this is an issue is because even though the stigma of mental health has gotten better than it was in the past, there's still a lot of stigma when it comes to talking about mental health. According to Renee Hershey and Mild 2020, people are not as open at discussing mental health issues with friends or colleagues the same way they are when talking about their need to change their diet or that their doctor just put them on staining to help lower their cholesterol. Then Renee Hershey and Mild 2020 go on to say, why is taking care of one's body socially acceptable, but taking care of one's mental health needs is considered a weakness? As a society, we need to work on trying to get rid of the stigma about mental health. Mental health is just as important as physical health. Another reason this is an issue is the prevalence rate of people being diagnosed with mental health issues is pretty high. According to the National Council of Behavioral Health 2016, statistics show that around 1 out of 5 adults across the United States is estimated to have a mental health disorder, and more than 20% of children at some point in their lives will be diagnosed. So why is there a stigma about mental health issues if so many people in our country suffer from mental health problems? Another reason this is an issue is because we live in a time where a lot of people don't feel safe at school. Many mass shootings have happened at schools, killing many. Not too long ago, El Paso had a mass shooting at the mall. My brother, who works in news in Las Vegas, had to go cover the shooting that happened at the concert. He said it was an awful night. Everyone running chaotically, many injured and dead. He said he still gets nightmares from it. According to Renee Hershey and Mild 2020, unfortunately it is common to hear after a mass shooting that the perpetrator had suffered from some type of mental illness or had shown his or her behavior has that something was off. Maybe if we had mental health screenings, we could help our students before something like this happens. Lastly, this is an issue because sometimes having a mental illness can lead to suicide. According to Renee Hershey and Mild 2020, obviously not all teens who commit suicide go to the extreme of planning out and implementing a mass shooting, but society needs to intervene and assist these children before one more life is lost to suicide. By screening our students for mental health, maybe we can prevent some suicides from occurring. As an educator, I would never want to hear that one of my students killed themselves. We need to help our students to realize that it is okay for them to talk about their mental health and that we are there for them. Why did I select this issue? I selected this issue because it's something I can relate to. Depression runs in my family on my mom's side. My grandma has depression, my mom has depression, and so do I. I first started being depressed in middle school. I was a shy, awkward kid that did not transition well from elementary to middle school. I was in special ed classes in middle school, and a group of boys in my class decided I was a perfect target. They teased me, they would call me fat, I would sit down in class, and they would move away from me like I had the plague. They called me Jesus because I had brown long hair, and they said I looked like him. I would cover my face with my hair because I was so shy. The special ed classes were not that big. The boys who teased me turned all the people against me in the class. I felt alone and weird. One day walking home from school, I thought about jumping in front of a car. The only reason I stopped was the thought of my parents and my brother. Also, I thought how bad it would affect the person's life who hit me. I was ashamed of my thoughts and didn't tell anyone. One day they teased me a lot in one of the periods I had with him. The next class, I would have again with them. I took scissors from one of my teacher's desks and went to the bathroom. And I thought if I had an accident, I wouldn't have to go to my next class. And I could go to the nurse's office instead and try to avoid the teasing. So I cut myself on my left wrist. I went to the nurse and showed her and told her I accidentally cut myself. She, of course, knew I was lying and told my mom. My mom talked to my teacher, and they really helped me to end the bullying. I wish that I went to her sooner, but I thought if I told her, it would cause more issues for me. I still have the scar on my left wrist. Oh, let's see, right there. From the day I cut myself. The sadness I saw from my parents made me feel awful. During my time of being bullied, I did not do that good in school. I wasn't worried about my classes. I was always worried about when they would tease me again. Maybe if I didn't say anything and was invisible, maybe no one would notice me. After my mom talked to my teachers and the bullying got better, my grades went up, I lost weight, and grew confidence. In high school, I finally broke out of my shyness and excelled in my classes. The next time I felt depressed was in my first year of college. I had never been away from home, and I did not transition well. I would cry almost every day, and I just wanted to go home. I had a hard time keeping up with my classes. Luckily, I managed to end my first semester with a 3.5. I went to counseling and they diagnosed me with depression, and I started to go to counseling and go on depression medication. I then started joining clubs and getting out there and ended up loving college. I think mental illness can really keep you from focusing and doing well in classes. All you want to do is focus on surviving and getting through the day. As an educator, I want my students to not suffer in silence like I did. I think it's okay to get therapy. It's okay to work on your mental health and tell others what you're going through. We need to end the stigma against mental health and help our students. Also, as an educator, I will not tolerate bullying. I want all my students to feel safe when they go to class. 5 pros for mental health screening. 1 pro, according to Rainier Hershey and Mile 2020. It is over the years, programs and resources have improved. But there is still a stigma about mental health. This is a pro because at least programs and resources are getting better. There still needs to be work on reducing the stigma, but at least mental health services are getting better than the past. Another pro, according to Rainier Hershey and Mile 2020. Although there are no regulations in place for school districts to provide screenings, SAMHA does attempt to assist in the regulation of insurance coverage costs for services required to treat individuals with mental health and substance abuse through the Affordable Care Act of 2010. This is awesome because a lot of people with mental health issues cannot afford services and let their conditions get worse. If they can afford it, then maybe they can get the services that they need to help them with their mental illness. A third pro, according to Rainier Hershey and Mile 2020, SAMHSA also assists in improving the types of care provided for children and adolescents with mental health and substance needs through the Children's Health Act of 2020. This is a great pro because it sounds like they're trying to keep finding the best ways they can, finding the best care they can for each of the children and adolescents they help. Another pro, according to Rainier Hershey and Mile 2020, special education is one area in the school setting that can and does identify students with severe mental health issues. This is good because it means that a lot of students in special education are getting identified and receiving the help they need. This is a con for regular education, though, because they are not getting identified as much and not receiving the help they need. Lastly, a pro, according to Rainier Hershey and Mile 2020, many students with severe emotional disturbance will receive specially designed instructions and supplemental aids and services outlined in an individual education program, IEP, that may also contain a behavior intervention plan, BIP, which outlines specific goals and objectives for students to work on over the course of the school year. This is a pro because it means there are plans being created to help individuals who are having issues with their behavioral, emotional, and mental needs. We just need to find ways to better diagnose individuals in regular education and create plans for them. 5 cons for mental health screenings. One con, according to Rainier Hershey and Mile 2020, however, when we discuss mental health, there is a definite stigma that exists. This is a problem because many people don't discuss their mental health because they're afraid of what others will think of them, which is terrible because mental health shouldn't be seen as a weakness. Instead, we need to embrace our mental health and start taking care of ourselves and one another. Another con, according to Rainier Hershey and Mile 2020, many derogatory names and terms were used and unfortunately some are still in existence today. We should not be using derogatory names like nutty, nutjob, crazy, freak, psycho, etc. Mental illness is a disease and should be treated like so. You wouldn't go up to somebody who is missing an arm and call them a freak. So why would you say mean names to people who have mental disease? A third con, according to Rainier Hershey and Mile 2020. Unfortunately, it's common to hear after a mass shooting that the perpetrator had suffered from some type of mental illness or shown with his or her behavior something was off. Maybe if we had our students do mental health screenings, we could help reduce these types of situations from happening. Another con, according to Rainier Hershey and Mile 2020. According to the statistics, it is likely that the majority of students with mental illnesses would be in the general education setting and have not been identified. This is why mental health screenings could really be useful because they could help identify all the students that are having problems and can get the help they need. Lastly, a con, according to Rainier Hershey and Mile 2020. If adolescents are starting to show signs of mental health illnesses during their teen years and are not getting diagnosed or receiving treatment, it is likely their illness will continue to get worse throughout the years. If we can manage the disease before it gets worse, then the child will have a better chance in success. If we keep letting it manifest, then it'll be harder to fix the disease. A couple myths about schools doing mental health screenings. One myth: everyone is going to accept it easily that we do mental health screenings at school. Not everyone is going to like this idea. Some may say they don't want their kids tested. Some will not want resources being used on screenings, etc. I think that maybe schools don't have to make it mandatory, but should highly suggest that all students get tested. That way the resource is there and we are not forcing people to do something they don't want to do. I would love the idea of mandatory mental health screenings because I think it could really help students, but I know others may not be a fan. So something is better than nothing. Myth 2. They could create a mental health screening test that is not biased towards anyone's culture. Well, maybe, but this is a myth because most of the time tests are created to cater middle-class white Americans, which is not okay. For example, when testing for special education, some tests have been known to be biased to questions that correspond to the ideals for middle-class white Americans. We do not want to diagnose someone as mentally ill just because in their culture something is okay, but in our culture we find it abnormal. Also, what if they are an English language learner? Just because they don't have the vocabulary yet, does that mean they are mentally ill? They would need to create a test that is pretty versatile. They could probably make a test versatile, but it would probably take some time. Conclusion. To conclude, I personally think that schools should do mental health screenings for all their students. I wish that I would have gotten screened early and would have tackled my depression. Instead, I let stigma scare me to not tell anyone because I didn't want to be considered crazy. I know, though, that not everyone will agree, though, and it would take a lot of time to create a test that isn't biased. I'm not saying it would be easy, but I think if we all worked at it, we could do it. I think mental health needs to be considered just as important as physical health. Maybe we can make it where it's not mandatory but highly suggested, and let parents know we are there to help their child if they need it. If we do not do mental health screenings, we should at least try our hardest to destigmatize mental illness. Let our students know it's okay if you're struggling, and that we will support them to the best of our ability. Lastly, let's try to end bullying. Bullying can really make someone unfocused and struggle in school, and so can mental illness. Thank you everyone for tuning into my news program today, and see you all soon for my next topic. My name is Rachel Coast, and I am signing off. Have a great week and be safe out there. Bye.